The Forbes photographer adjusts his lens one final time. Ms. Tran, could you look directly at the camera? I straighten my shoulders, the weight of my Cartier watch catching the studio light. Behind me, the skyline of Boston stretches like a conquered kingdom. Youngest female CEO to build a billion-dollar fintech empire. That's tomorrow's headline, but they don't know the real story. 3 years ago, I was nobody. 3 years ago, I discovered that the man I loved, the man who held my hand through MIT's brutal computer science program, who whispered promises about our future over late-night coding sessions, had been planning to destroy me from the very beginning. I still remember that October evening, rain drumming against our Beacon Hill apartment windows. Charles was in the shower, and his laptop sat open on our shared desk. A single email notification glowed on the screen. The sender, Williams and Associates Legal. The subject line made my blood freeze. Asset Protection Strategy, Tran Marriage Contract. My fingers trembled as I clicked it open. Charles, per our discussion, we've outlined the optimal approach to secure controlling interest in Lucent Technologies post-marriage. Given that Ms. Tran maintains 87% ownership, the prenuptial agreement should include clauses for immediate asset transfer in cases of 1. Divorce proceedings initiated by her, 2. Incompetency determination, 3. Unfortunate death. We recommend accelerating the marriage timeline. The laptop screen blurred. 7 years together. 7 years of believing he loved the quiet, unassuming girl who tutored him through calculus. 7 years of hiding my success, my company, my true worth, because I thought it would make him feel small. I was wrong about everything, but they were wrong about me too. They saw a naive Vietnamese-American girl from Dorchester, daughter of a nail salon owner and a dead engineer. They didn't see the blockchain architect who'd been quietly revolutionizing decentralized finance. They didn't see the fury building behind my gentle smile. 3 days later, Charles proposed. We were at Mistral, surrounded by his Harvard Business School friends and their perfectly blonde wives. The diamond ring, 2 carats, princess cut, sparkled under the chandelier as he dropped to one knee. Evelyn Marie Tran, he said, his voice carrying across the hushed restaurant. Will you marry me? I said yes, of course, but inside something had crystallized into diamond-hard resolve. The engagement party was held at his mother's Louisburg Square mansion. Catherine Whitmore, Boston's darling philanthropist, received guests in her pearls and condescension. I watched her air-kiss the mayor's wife, compliment the senator's daughter, then turn to greet me with a smile sharp enough to cut glass. Evelyn, darling, she said, loud enough for nearby guests to hear. That dress is interesting, very ethnic. Charles tells me your mother does nails. Her laugh tinkled like breaking crystal. How quaint that you found your way into our little family. I smiled and nodded, playing the part of the grateful immigrant's daughter. But Catherine Whitmore had just made her first mistake. She'd underestimated me completely. That night, I sat in my childhood bedroom in my mother's Dorchester triple-decker, staring at my laptop screen. Lucent's stock price had hit 340s per share. My anonymous fintech platform was processing $2.8 billion in transactions monthly. Venture capital firms were desperately trying to identify the mysterious founder who'd created the most disruptive blockchain architecture since Bitcoin. They had no idea she was a 29-year-old woman who still helped her mother with inventory at the nail salon on weekends. I opened a new document and began typing. Strategic Restructuring Plan, Lucent Technologies. By dawn, I had mapped out a 5-year roadmap that would make Catherine Whitmore's worst nightmares look like pleasant dreams. Charles wanted to marry me for my money? Perfect. I'd make sure that when he finally got it, there wouldn't be anything left to take. The transformation began with my appearance. Gone were the oversized MIT hoodies, and wire-rimmed glasses. I hired Diane von Furstenberg's personal stylist, learned to carry myself like I owned every room I entered, and began speaking at exclusive fintech conferences under the pseudonym E.M. Tran. I enrolled in executive coaching with Margaret Chen, a retired federal judge who'd clawed her way to the top of Boston's legal establishment despite facing the same racism and sexism I knew too well. "Power isn't about revenge, dear," she told me during our first session. "It's about justice, and justice requires patience." Patience became my religion. Months passed. I continued playing the devoted fiancé while secretly restructuring Lucent's ownership. I created a web of shell companies, offshore trusts, and investment vehicles so complex that Harvard Business School would need a semester course to unravel it. The beautiful part? Every transaction was completely legal. Charles grew more possessive as our wedding date approached. He insisted on joint bank accounts, questioned my work schedule, and began making decisions about our future without consulting me. His mask was slipping, but he still didn't know mine had never been real. The first crack in his confidence came at a Boston Tech Week panel. I was supposed to be in the audience, the supportive girlfriend applauding his keynote on emerging markets in digital finance. Instead, I was backstage, being introduced as the mystery speaker, the architect behind the revolutionary Lucent platform. When I walked onto that stage, Charles's face went white. 2,000 of Boston's tech elite rose to their feet in applause. For the first time in 7 years, I wasn't hiding. "The future of finance," I said into the microphone, my voice steady and clear, "belongs to those brave enough to disrupt traditional power structures." In the front row, Charles sat frozen, finally understanding that his prey had become the predator. The confrontation came that night in our apartment. Charles paced like a caged animal, his Harvard MBA composure completely shattered. "How long?" he demanded. "How long have you been lying to me?" I set down my wine glass carefully. "I've never lied to you, Charles. I've simply never corrected your assumptions." "Your assumptions," his voice cracked. "Evelyn, you're worth over $1 billion. You've been worth that much since before we started dating. I've been making financial plans based on what? That I was some poor immigrant's daughter you could manipulate?" I stood up, feeling every inch of my carefully cultivated power. "Those plans you made with your lawyers? I've read them all." The blood drained from his face. "You went through my email? Your laptop was open. Your password was my birthday. How romantic." I moved to the window, looking out at the city that had once intimidated me. "Did you really think I wouldn't find out? Or did you just not care, because you saw me as too weak to do anything about it?" For a moment, silence stretched between us like a chasm. Then Charles's mask slipped completely. "Look, Evelyn, maybe we got off on the wrong foot here, but we can work this out. We love each other." I turned back to face him, and for the first time in 7 years, let him see who I really was. "No, Charles, you loved the idea of me, the controllable me, the version that would hand over everything and smile while you took credit. That's not— The wedding is off." The words fell like stones into still water. "And tomorrow, you'll understand what happens when you underestimate a woman who's been building empires while you were building fantasies." His face twisted with something ugly. "You think you can just walk away? My family has connections you can't imagine." I smiled, cold and sharp as winter. "Charles, your family is about to discover exactly what they're connected to." The chess match began immediately. Charles, in his desperation, made the mistake of threatening me publicly. At a charity gala 2 weeks later, he cornered me near the silent auction. "You're making a mistake, Evelyn," he whispered, close enough that his cologne made me nauseous. "My mother has friends in the SEC. Your little blockchain company could face regulatory scrutiny that would destroy you." I sipped my champagne and smiled. Is that a threat, Charles? It's a reality check. What Charles didn't know was that I'd been recording every conversation we'd had since discovering his emails. Massachusetts is a one-party consent state, and threatening financial regulatory harassment is a federal crime. The real war began 3 days later when Catherine Whitmore held her annual Women in Business charity luncheon, a patronizing affair where Boston society wives raised money for disadvantaged girls. I bought a table. Correction, the E.M. Tran Foundation bought a table. I arrived precisely on time, wearing a dress that cost more than most people's cars. Catherine's smile faltered when she saw me, but Boston manners demanded she maintain composure. Evelyn, dear, how surprising to see you here. Mrs. Whitmore, I replied sweetly, I wouldn't miss an opportunity to support women's advancement. During the silent auction, I bid aggressively on a week at the Whitmore family's Martha's Vineyard compound. Catherine's friends whispered and stared as the price climbed. When the hammer fell at $75,000, the room was dead silent. Thank you all, I said, standing to address the crowd. I'm so pleased to contribute to this important cause. As someone who built her success from nothing, I understand how crucial it is that we support women who've been overlooked or underestimated. My eyes found Catherine's across the room. After all, you never know who might surprise you. That afternoon, Charles called me 17 times. I didn't answer once. The twist came from the last person I expected. Sophia Whitmore, Charles's younger sister. I found her waiting in my car after a late night at the Lucent offices. Don't call security, she said quietly. I need to tell you something important. Sophia had always seemed like a vapid Instagram influencer, but sitting in my passenger seat, she looked haggard and desperate. I know about the emails, she said. I know what Charles and Mother plan to do to you. My hand froze on my phone. What are you talking about? I've been helping you. The words tumbled out in a rush. The media leaks about Mother's charity mismanagement, the photos of Charles with that Goldman Sachs intern, the anonymous tips to TechCrunch about Lucent's innovation, that was me. The world tilted sideways. Why? Sophia's laugh was bitter. Because I know what it feels like to have them destroy your dreams. 3 years ago, I had a successful jewelry design business, small but growing. Then Mother decided it was unseemly for a Whitmore woman to be in trade. She used her connections to kill my investors, destroy my supplier relationships, ruin my reputation. Also, I'd marry some banking heir and produce grandchildren. She pulled out her phone, showing me screenshots of family group chats that made my blood boil. Catherine calling me Charles's little ethnic project, plans to manage me after the wedding, discussions about having me declared mentally incompetent if I ever tried to divorce. But there's something else, Sophia said, her voice dropping to a whisper. Something about your father. My breath caught. My father died when I was 12. No, Evelyn. He was murdered. She handed me a manila folder. He was Robert Tran, one of the original founders of Whitmore Enterprises. My grandfather had him killed because he was getting too powerful, too threatening to their white supremacist legacy. The folder contained newspaper clippings, police reports, and company documents that told a story of betrayal and murder spanning decades. My father hadn't died in a construction accident. He'd been sabotaged. The final confrontation happened at the Whitmore family's annual Christmas party, held in their Beacon Hill mansion. I arrived uninvited, wearing my father's jade ring and carrying a briefcase full of justice. The party was in full swing when I walked through the front door. Conversations stopped. Champagne glasses froze halfway to lips. Catherine Whitmore stood at the foot of her grand staircase like a queen receiving subjects, but when she saw me, her face went white as her pearls. Evelyn, she said, her voice strained. How unexpected. Mrs. Whitmore, I replied, my voice carrying across the silent room. I hope you don't mind, I have some family business to discuss. Charles appeared at his mother's side, his face flushed with alcohol and anger. You need to leave, now. I opened my briefcase and pulled out a stack of documents. I don't think so. You see, I've just completed the acquisition of Whitmore Enterprises. All of it. Your real estate holdings, your investment portfolio, your charitable foundation, everything. Catherine's knees nearly buckled. That's impossible. Is it? I smiled, feeling my father's spirit standing beside me. Did you really think you could murder Robert Tran's daughter and get away with it? Did you think I wouldn't discover what you did to him? What you planned to do to me? The room erupted in whispers. Charles lunged forward, but I held up my hand, stopping him with nothing but the force of my presence. I'm not here for revenge, I said, my voice steady and clear. I'm here for justice. Robert Tran was a brilliant engineer who helped build your family's fortune. You killed him because he threatened your prejudiced vision of success. But his daughter is going to finish what he started. I looked around the room at Boston's elite, all of them complicit in maintaining systems that crushed people like my father, like me. Tomorrow, every major news outlet will receive evidence of your crimes. Your charitable foundation will be restructured to actually help people instead of maintaining your social status. And Charles? I turned to face my former fiancé. You're going to learn what it means to lose everything. 6 months later, I stood in the same Forbes photographer's studio, but everything had changed. The interview was different this time. Not about my business success, but about the Tran Foundation for Social Justice, built on the ashes of the Whitmore Empire. Catherine Whitmore was serving community service at a Dorchester food bank, her charity having been exposed for tax fraud and racial discrimination. Charles had moved to California, working as a junior analyst at a tech startup. He sent me a letter once, apologizing for everything, but I threw it away unread. Some wounds heal better without words. Sophia and I had become unlikely allies. She'd restarted her jewelry business with funding from my foundation, creating beautiful pieces that celebrated immigrant stories and resilience. You saved my life, she told me once. You showed me that we don't have to accept the roles they give us. The real victory wasn't financial, though seeing Lucent hit $1 trillion valuation felt pretty good. The real victory was sitting in my mother's nail salon on a Saturday morning, watching her train young Vietnamese women in business skills through a program I'd funded. You know, my mother said, carefully painting a client's nails, your father would be proud, not just of your success, but of how you chose to use it. I looked around the salon, at the women learning English, studying for their citizenship tests, building dreams in a country that had tried to convince them they weren't worthy. This was my father's real legacy, not revenge, but transformation, not destruction, but creation. My phone buzzed with a text from Margaret Chen. Ready for the next case? There's a young Latina engineer in Cambridge who needs our help. Her boss is trying to steal her patents. I smiled, feeling that familiar fire kindle in my chest. The work was never finished, but now I had the power to fight battles worth winning. I texted back, on my way. The phoenix had risen, and she was just getting started.